Well, good morning, everyone. So, the last few days have been very dramatic. My mother fell and broke the top of her leg bone where it joins onto the hip. Particularly nasty place to break a leg, and so she's been in hospital, still there. She had an operation, which is a bit of an issue for us because she's of her own volition quite a while ago informed us all that she didn't want to have what we call escalated treatment. So she's got what we call a treatment escalation plan in process, which means that there's a special piece of paper with red edges which says that she will not receive resuscitation, and if she had a heart attack she would not be given what would be necessary to bring her back. And this is all to do with the idea that she wants to die in dignity and doesn't want to have her life artificially prolonged. But then we had this really challenging situation just a few days ago where she fell, broke the top of her leg bone, and there I was in the accident in an emergency with her, and we have power of attorney, so I've got power of attorney for her on her health and welfare and her financial affairs and property, so I was fully authorised to act on her behalf. But I guess what I really want to say to you, what a challenge it was to suddenly realise, okay, that's all been set up, and I've got the reality of I've got to make a choice on her behalf. And it was explaining if she didn't have the operation, she would definitely be bedbound until she died, and most likely in constant pain even if they gave her pain medication. Or the alternative of an operation, which is violating the treatment escalation plan, but it would mean that she'd be able to walk again and there was a chance that she wouldn't be in any pain. Hard decision, and although there's a group of us in the family on the power of attorney, it was down to me because I was there, the others were some way away. I'd informed them what was going on, some had replied, some hadn't, so there it was down to me. So I gave consent for the operation and it's been a great success. There she is, 90, having an operation. It's not the sort of thing I thought would ever happen to my mum, but it did. And extraordinarily successful actually, and she is recovering extremely well, having physiotherapy already only a couple of days after the operation, and moving about, actually getting to the toilet with the walking frame and all the rest of it. So my big priority at the moment is what can I do to help her heal that bone. So that's why we're sitting here with the pressure cooker and the water boiling away. And I will just show you. So I'm making a very special healing bone broth for someone who's had a broken bone. So we're going to start off with that, and that is seaweed. So that is seaweed I've literally got from the beach. You can buy seaweed, of course you can, but to be quite frank, the stuff that you can find on your local beaches, so long as they're not seriously polluted, is extremely good indeed. So that's the first thing. The seaweed's got the iodine and all the other minerals that's going to be necessary, and to that we're going to add the source of animal food, which is also going to do incredible good. So we're going to get the bones in there as per usual. So we're starting off with a bone broth with the added seaweed. That makes it different from what you'd normally find in a recipe. And that's literally all the bones I've got in the house. Now, I'm not doing this in a slow cooker the way I normally would, which would be a better way to do things, because I'm in a hurry. I want to get this down my mother's throat as quickly as possible, which means I'll need to find a way to make the bone broth quicker, and the pressure cooker, because it's going to subject all the ingredients to pressure, that speeds up the process significantly. So I should be able to go in this afternoon and give her her first bone broth. Now the other thing is, thanks to subscriber Margaret, I was clued into the fact that if you want to make a more effective, efficient bone broth, you want to add some cider vinegar. The cider vinegar actually helps the extraction process. And this is what we do when we're making an ayahuasca brew, same thing. So I'm going to have 3 dessert spoons of cider vinegar going to go in there as well. That's it. So it's really going to get those minerals extracted out of the bones and out of the seaweed even more efficiently. I'm going to add rosemary. We say in England rosemary is for remembrance. Someone with Alzheimer's, I haven't had the chance to tell you that, she's also recently being diagnosed with moderate Alzheimer's. There's just been so much going on, I haven't had the time to tell you, so that's important. Bay leaves, these are picked literally locally from the garden, so we've got half a dozen of them in there. And then I'm going to put my usual herbs in. I'm going to put some thyme, it's obviously a powerful medicinal herb in its own right. And I'm going to put some oregano, wonderful healing herb in its own right. It's wonderful to be able to get oregano on the stalk like that. And this is where I start to get very creative. So the next really creative thing is I'm going to put this mushroom in here. This mushroom is called chaga. Very powerful healing mushroom. Grows on birch trees. Thank you very much to Phil, the pharmacologist, for providing this for me. I've looked after it well. I'm going to put a few pieces in here on the grounds that chaga is an adaptogen. So one thing, if you had trauma, had an operation, you need to help with adaptation. So that's what's going in there. That's why it's there. And then this is a bit I'm most excited about. I was clearly guided this morning because I wanted to give my mother a source of silica, and I was going to go down the health food shop and buy some silica pills. And I remember, pills is always the worst and least effective way to obtain any medicinal benefits. You can work with a whole plant or the whole animal, you do so much better. So what I've got here is I've got the horsetail. Okay, it only has the world's best source of silica. 8% of this plant is actually silica, so I'm going to put a couple of dessert spoons of horsetail in there. That's what I harvested myself last year in Accrington. And I'm also, for the blood purification aspect, and it was also rich in silica, put some nettle in there. So now I've really got a big herb party going on in here. So you may wonder what's going on in the glass. Well, the glass is water. There's already a pint of water in there which everything's simmering in. And I'm going to add this. So this is water to which I've added some saffron, which gives it this absolutely delightful colour. So we're going to put a pint of saffron water in there as well. And then give the glass a rinse and pour the dregs in there as well. So we're nearly there, but I haven't quite finished. You can imagine, someone does an operation. I looked at her leg yesterday, and of course I have a massive amount of inflammation because, of course, to do an operation where they're literally putting metal parts into the top of her thigh bone, call it the femur, don't we? Well, that's going to produce a lot of inflammation, that degree of trauma. So what we want is a very powerful anti-inflammatory, and of course you could buy pharmaceutical drugs for anti-inflammatory, but this is so much better. This is, of course, our good friend turmeric. So let's grate up some turmeric and get it in there as well. And I shall be relatively generous with the amount I use, much more than normal. And if you remember this from previous films, the other thing I'm going to need to do is I'm going to need to potentize this turmeric with two things. First of all, I'm going to add some coconut oil that will potentize it. And then the other thing I'm going to add is a little bit of black pepper. And just adding the black pepper on its own is going to make it 2,000 times stronger. So what with the black pepper and the coconut oil, that's going to make it a lot stronger. And let's get some Himalayan or sea salt in there as well. That's appropriate to have a little bit of that. So the black pepper, yeah, we don't want much, just a little bit, that's absolutely fine. So literally just a large pinch of that will do. And I don't add a lot of coconut oil, equivalent of a generous teaspoon, probably slightly more than a generous teaspoon. So we now have just about got the point where all the essential ingredients are in there, plus all these extra things. You can see my bowl is getting empty. That gives you an idea of how much we must have got in there. So let's just have a look, see how it's looking now. There we are, what a difference. There's so many things going on in there now, isn't there just? So what I'll need to do is I'll need to put the lid on and bring it up to pressure. But before I do that, I'll make sure there's plenty of liquid. I think I could get getting another pint in there just to be safe. Now with a slow cooker you lose very little, actually, very little liquid. But with a pressure cooker I might lose some more, so I'm going to put an extra pint in there. And then something I managed to find yesterday, and it's funny, because there it is, it's growing down by the beach. Now this is the last place in the world you expect to find this plant, growing down by the beach. For me this is one of the most elusive herbs. It's called mugwort. It's about to flower, it's at its maximum potency at this point. So I'm going to put this in as well. Now this is very rich in iron, which is fantastic. Bearing in mind there must have been some blood loss during the operation. So we're going to get that in there as well. So we literally have got an extremely powerful medicine that we're brewing up here. And the idea is, I took some bone broth in yesterday, but I arrived at the hospital after the evening meal. So of course she wasn't hungry, she didn't have any, did she? So one of the things about being a shaman is one needs to learn how to stalk, to be a stalker. Not in the negative sense used in the mainstream media, but in the sense it's actually meant. So in order to stalk my mother successfully today, what I'll need to do is I need to actually provide this medicinal brew before her evening meal is served, when she is at her hungriest. And then she say, oh yeah, let's have some of that. And to be honest, I don't even care if she doesn't have a lot. But what I am after her doing is I'm after her having enough to fill that bowl. So that's a small bowl there. If I can get her to have that amount of bone broth, I should really call this supercharged healing bone broth. It's going to be amazing. Now I have just been informed that there's yet another ingredient that needs to go into this. That's what happens when you work with guides. So out there on my balcony, I'm just scraping a little bit, extra turmeric I can see on the grater. Out there on the balcony, I have a comfrey plant, which I've been growing, not knowing if I would ever need it. We're going to get a bit of comfort because it's actually called knit bone. It actually knits bones. So obviously we want that in as well, so just go get that. Now there's literally not much, that's all I've been able to gather. So beggars can't be choosers. I've got what I've got, so in it goes. So now I can get that lid on. And what will happen is I've got it on the right setting here. What will happen now is, because I've shut that lid, it will build up a pressure. And it won't making any hissing sounds until it's reached that pressure. When it's reached that pressure, it will start to hiss. I'll then need to turn the heat down, and I'll leave it there for as long as I've got. Then we're going to have about 5 hours. So it's not as good as being able to get 24 hours in a slow cooker, but it's the best I can manage. So there you go, that's why I haven't been hearing from you, because I've been fully immersed in all this. Thank you very much.